another diagonal forward section is taken. Subdivide the previous section to use as a guide. It is over-directed back to the previous section, elevated to 90 degrees, and point cut to follow the guideline. Diagonal forward sections are continued and the technique repeated until reaching behind the ear. Working in front of the ear, a diagonal forward section is maintained. It is over-directed back behind the ear, elevated to 90 degrees, and point cut following the guideline. Diagonal forward sections are repeated towards the hairline. The hair is combed back to a stationary guideline behind the ear, elevated to 90 degrees, and point cut to follow the guide. The shape is cross-checked horizontally. And the balance checked. Exactly the same technique is repeated on the opposite side. Note, the hand position has changed. Here, the hair is held from the top of the section. The perimeter is now personalized to suit. The hair is combed to natural fall and point cut on the skin in the back. And at 1 finger's depth through the sides. Check balance. Radial partings are taken from the crown to the back of the ears, separating the back from the front. With the profile parting in place, a pivoting radial section is taken. It is combed to 90 degrees, over-directed, and point cut to follow the graduation guideline from the underneath, at the same angle. The top half of this section is reworked with point cutting to follow the head shape and reduce weight. Pivoting radial sections are continued until the radial parting is reached. Each section is combed to 90 degrees, over-directed, and point cut to follow the graduation guideline. The top part of each section is reworked in the same way. The balance is checked. The technique is repeated on the opposite side. And the balance cross-checked. Working in front of the radial parting, a pivoting radial section is taken. The over-direction of this section is determined by hair density. In this case, it is over-directed back to the previous section, and the guideline followed. Pivoting radial sections are continued until the profile parting is reached. Each section is over-directed back to the previous. It is elevated to 90 degrees from the round of the head, and point cut to follow the guide. The balance is checked. Exactly the same technique is continued on the opposite side. Check balance. The hair is now blow-dried using a combination of fingers and a styling brush. The hair has been coloured using a diamond technique, which can be viewed on our classic colouring series. After blow drying, the hair is personalised. The front perimeter is combed to natural fall, held at 1 finger's depth, and point cut to detail the angle. The graduation below the occipital is held in the comb, and deep parallel point cut. The perimeter is again personalised with point cutting. Using exactly the same sectioning pattern as for the cut, the hair is texturized with deep parallel point cutting to further reduce the weight within the shape and create texture. Sides are also personalised with a surface channeling technique. A finishing product is applied and the hair power dried to emphasise the texture. Transient graduation recap. Below horseshoe. Partings and sections are diagonal forward. Distribution is 90 degrees to over-directed. Elevation is 90 degrees to over-directed. And the line cut is vertical graduation, above horseshoe. Partings and sections are pivoting radials. Distribution is 90 degrees to over-directed. Elevation is 90 degrees to over-directed. And the cut is rounded visually to the head shape. Personalising is an essential part of the Toni and Guy philosophy. Texturizing techniques are used to adapt classic shapes to suit the individual. On the last video in this series, we introduced techniques such as point cutting, slicing, brick cutting and razoring, which expand the classic portfolio to accommodate all lengths and textures of hair and allow the stylist to develop their creativity for the benefit of the client. The men's graduated layer technique creates a strong technical shape through the interior and graduated texture around the perimeter. A profile parting is taken from the center of the forehead to the center of the nape. A horseshoe section is taken from below the crown to the recession area. A slight diagonal back section is taken from the front hairline towards the ear. With the head upright, using the fine teeth of the comb, the section is elevated to 90 degrees. The line is cut, decreasing in length from the interior to the perimeter. Slight diagonal back sections are continued through the sides, and the technique repeated. Behind the ear, the same sectioning pattern is used. Following the guideline, it is cut to slightly decrease in length towards the nape. Continue with slight diagonal back sections. Elevating to 90 degrees and cutting to decrease in length following the guideline. The sectioning pattern and technique are repeated until reaching just beyond the center back of the head. Exactly the same technique is used on the opposite side. At the front hairline, a slight diagonal back section is taken towards the front of the ear, elevated to 90 degrees, and cut with the length decreasing towards the perimeter. The balance is checked before continuing. Slight diagonal back sections are maintained and the technique repeated until the center back of the head has been reached. cross-check horizontally. Above the horseshoe section, a slight diagonal back section is taken at the side, a section in from the hairline. This section is left out now to allow for the recession area. It will be detailed later. The section to be cut is elevated to 90 degrees, and the line cut connecting the internal length to the previously cut graduation at the same angle. Slight diagonal back sections are continued through to the back, combing and cutting at 90 degrees. Maintain the graduation guideline until just beyond the centre back of the head is reached. Exactly the same technique is used on the opposite side. The hairline at the front is now incorporated. It is over-directed back, and the graduation guideline followed. A profile section is taken from the front hairline through to the occipital. Starting at the crown, the hair is elevated to 90 degrees and cut square through to the front hairline. From the crown to the top of the occipital, the section is over-directed up and the guideline cut square. Across the top, horizontal sections are taken. Keeping the profile parting in place, the hair is combed to 90 degrees and cut square. Horizontal sections are continued through to the front hairline, and the technique repeated. The last hairline sections are over-directed back to allow for the recession area. Exactly the same technique is used on the opposite side. A curved section is taken at the fringe area. The hair is combed to natural fall, elevated to 45 degrees, and point cut to a suitable length, in this case just above the brow. The same curved section is taken on the opposite side and the technique repeated. The hair is dried using a flat brush. Here, the hair has been coloured using a brick radial technique, which can be viewed on the Toni & Guy Classic Colour series. To personalise the shape, the fringe is held in the comb and point cut. The perimeter is held on the skin and detailed with point cutting. The internal lengths are held in the cone and deep parallel point cut to remove weight. The nape is personalised further with point cutting.